Going into 2024, most would have agreed that Boeing really just needed a boring year. It just needed to stay out of the headlines in terms of negative publicity and quietly work on delivering problem-free aircraft. Unfortunately, it was just 5 days into 2024 that this hope was shattered. Instead, it was very much the opposite of a boring year. In today's video, we go over Boeing's past year and everything that has happened. No doubt it's a year that the company desperately wants to move on from. So yes, 2024 began with a frightening door plug blowout on January 5th. As most people will know by now, the incident involved a Boeing 737 MAX 9 operated by Alaska Airlines. As Alaska Airlines is one of several MAX 9 operators with a lower density, the carrier was not required to have a proper emergency exit where this door cutout was made. So, the cutout was fitted with a plug and made to look like any other section of the aircraft from the inside. What was not known until after the incident investigation was that this door plug did not have its bolts installed. Miraculously, the nearly new aircraft at the time operated several previous flights without issue. However, the door plug blew out that one fateful evening at 16,000 feet. Another miracle was that no passengers were seated next to the door cutout on that fairly full flight. It was also extremely fortunate that the door plug blew out at an altitude where passengers were required to have their seatbelts fastened. What followed was precautionary groundings from Alaska Airlines and other MAX 9 operators in order to inspect their aircraft. During this process, both Alaska Airlines and United were reported to have found loose bolts on their jets. It was also reported that a 737 MAX operating in India with an undisclosed airline had also discovered a missing washer. While many aircraft incidents remain somewhat within the aviation industry and don't make it to mainstream media, the door plug incident was simply too high profile and attracted the attention of lawmakers, regulators, the largest media outlets, and, of course, the general public. Travel and flight booking engine site Kayak even had a filter to allow customers to exclude flights operated by 737 MAX 8 and MAX 9 aircraft, a feature which spiked in the few months after the Alaska Airlines incident. With more attention from regulators, Boeing's output was capped, and its manufacturing processes were put under increased scrutiny while the NTSB tried to figure out how Flight AS-1282 could have happened in the first place. Seeing the bigger picture and how all of this would affect future aircraft deliveries, major customer United Airlines rewrote its plans for the 737 MAX 10 and worked to find short-term replacements, eventually finding a lessor which would supply A321neos. Over the year and right up until these last few weeks of 2024, whistleblowers stepped forward to acknowledge that workers were under intense pressure to get aircraft out the door. Pressure was so intense that shortcuts were said to have been made and inspection records falsified. Even worse, any concerns that were raised were said to have been suppressed, ignored, or met with threats of retaliation. Indeed, it was in December 2024 that one worker told the media that parts labelled defective had been removed from quarantine and likely installed on jets in order to keep the production line moving. Earlier in the year, a former senior manager told the media that he'd even walked off a flight after realising it was a 737 MAX 9 and that he continues to refuse to board such aircraft. One whistleblower by the name of John Barnett was in the process of providing his testimony about Boeing's production practices when he was found dead in his vehicle. As reported by multiple sources, the man had testified for 12 hours before his death, which a coroner's report later ruled to be self-inflicted. His attorney, commenting on his client's demeanour prior to his death, stated, "You could see him turning white as the tension built. He didn't feel that Boeing had adequately addressed the concerns he'd raised. He'd put his career on the line for that. He felt that Boeing's practices still posed a risk to the flying public, and that really bothered him." As noted in Fortune, at one point in his testimony, Barnett acknowledged that he was dealing with a lot internally, saying, "I kind of get off track with the emotion." Despite the coroner's official findings, the circumstances were enough for people to believe that Boeing had a sinister role in Barnett's passing, putting the company in an even darker place in terms of public perception. Of course, it didn't help that another whistleblower named Josh Dean of Spirit Aerosystems passed away after battling pneumonia and a subsequent bacterial infection. Over the summer, manufacturing challenges continued with Boeing, with news emerging that counterfeit titanium may have made its way into the production process, an issue that impacted Airbus as well. Faulty fastener installation was also alleged to have taken place with undelivered 787s in June, while in August it was revealed that the company had reported that certain 787 main landing gear inspections were not performed during the production process. Around this same time, the US Department of Justice charged Boeing with criminal fraud related to the deadly MAX 8 crashes that happened in 2018 and 2019. Boeing submitted a guilty plea for this, but this case is still in limbo at the time of video production. It was recently, in early December, that a judge actually blocked Boeing's guilty plea, citing concerns over the government's diversity and inclusion policy covering the selection of the independent monitor to oversee Boeing for 3 years. Per Reuters, the judge said the agreement was quote-unquote not in the public interest. With the families of the crash victims accusing the plea deal as taking it easy on Boeing, many were in support of the judge's decision. And so this part of Boeing's story continues to play out. The company also underwent a significant overhaul in leadership. In addition to several executives and board members stepping down, the company's CEO also decided to leave the company. Taking the place of David Calhoun has been former president and CEO of Rockwell Collins, Kelly Ortberg. Without any additional challenges at the time, Ortberg already had significant work ahead of him to get Boeing production back on track and restore public confidence in the company. However, it was about 1 month into the new job that Boeing's unionized machinists in the Seattle area voted to strike for higher wages and improved benefits and compensation. The strike ran from September 13th to November 5th, with the company unable to deliver any new 737, 767 and 777 aircraft for a prolonged period of time. As you can imagine, it's not easy to restart the complex manufacturing processes after more than 50 days of inactivity, and so it was only on December 6th that 737 assembly resumed, with 767 and 777 programs back on track in mid-December. It's incredible just how much Boeing has been through in 2024, and we're quite sure we didn't get to cover everything. But hopefully, as we step into a new year with a relatively new CEO and a new contract for thousands of its workers, Boeing can get its boring year where the only news has to do with aircraft being delivered. But what do you think of Boeing's tough 2024 and its prospects for a quieter 2025? Let us know by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.